Hello, my name is Clarissa Albina, and here are my two lovely audience members. Many people in the United States believe that capital punishment is morally justified. After all, we only ever execute those who are guilty of the most heinous of crimes, and we do so as humanely as possible. Plus, our justice system is based on the premise of innocent until proven guilty, and capital punishment in particular is held up to the strictest of scrutiny. We would never torture anyone to death. We would never discriminate in who was executed. And we would certainly never execute an innocent man, right? Well, unfortunately, we do all those things. In fact, we do those things a lot. Capital punishment is not moral. It is, in fact, cruel and unfair and horrifyingly inaccurate. Capital punishment often falls into the realm of cruel and unusual punishment outlawed by the Constitution. According to Austin Surratt, a professor of jurisprudence and political science at Amherst College, it is estimated that 3% of U.S. executions are botched. Of those, lethal injections, supposedly the most humane method of execution, were the most likely to be botched, standing at 7.12%. Executions of prisoners by lethal injections can last more than an hour in searching for a vein, which includes multiple needle punctures. And even after the drug is administered, it can take several minutes for a prisoner to die, the longest one being 43 minutes. Electrocutions can lead to limbs catching on fire while the victim is still alive. Hanging can lead to death by strangulation over several minutes or even decapitation. And the gas chamber can take up to 18 minutes of suffocation before death. Now, knowing that executions are often painful and inefficient, I want to turn your attention to the fact that there are a lot of inconsistencies in who is chosen to be executed and why. Not all of those that are convicted of murder get the death penalty. Before 1976, more than half of those executed in the United States were Black, despite the fact that they only made up 10% of the population. This eventually led to the Supreme Court temporarily deeming capital punishment unconstitutional in 1972 due to these inconsistencies in sentencing, until those problems were fixed. Today, there is less of a racial discrepancy in who is executed. However, there is a large racial discrepancy in the victim of those sentenced to death. Blacks and whites are murder victims in almost equal numbers of crimes. However, 77% of capital homicide cases since 1976 have involved a white victim. And of those actually given the death penalty, 80% of those had killed a white person. Another recent Louisiana study found that defendants with white victims were 97% more likely to receive a death sentence than defendants with Black victims. Discrimination in who is given the death penalty also applies to both men and the poor. Women commit 11% of all criminal homicides, and yet they are only 2% likely to be sentenced to death. And approximately 90% of those on death row could not afford to hire a lawyer while they were being tried, which ultimately means they are more likely to be convicted. Not only is it clear that the process involved in choosing who is executed is flawed, but the actual criminal conviction itself has sometimes proven to be flawed. How many innocent people are given the death penalty? Horrifyingly, we don't know. Since 1973, over 156 people have been released from the death rows in 26 states because they were proven innocent. As a percentage of all death sentences, that's just 1.6%. Doesn't seem like an overly large number, right? However, University of Michigan law professor Samuel Gross did a study to estimate the likely number of unjust convictions. He determined that 4.1% of people on death row were and are likely innocent. Considering that less than half of that number have been exonerated, the study suggests that we have wrongly executed untold numbers of people. In this speech, I have shown you that capital punishment is cruel and unusual punishment that unfairly targets those of certain demographics and mostly only when they have killed a white person, and has likely resulted in a large amount of innocent people murdered by the state. I urge you to consider in what circumstances it is ever acceptable to take the life of another. I hope my speech has changed the minds of those who think that capital punishment is morally justifiable, and I urge you to support policies that move away from such a flawed and biased system. I hope one day we have a system that is fair and just toward all, a goal I think we all can agree on.